The Weald Foundation is a charitable trust that was established in 2003. Its primary objective is to preserve and restore historically significant military vehicles and equipment, especially those from the First and Second World War. Its mission is to educate the public about the history of these vehicles and their role in military conflicts. The Weald Foundation's collection is a rare and unique assembly of working vehicles, both armoured and soft-skinned, and is regarded as one of the finest collections of its kind in the world. The Foundation has an extensive historical archive, compiled from many thousands of hours of research into each restoration. The archive not only provides provenance for each vehicle in the collection, but also detailed and valuable points of reference and best practices for future projects.
Hilary, good afternoon, sir, and thank you very much for agreeing to do another one of these documentary sessions. And today's topic is all about the formation of our archive and how we use our archive and what elements do we draw from and pull together in order to ensure that what vehicle we are ultimately going to be rolling out is as nigh to 100% accurate as possible.
Absolutely, and is something that can be looked at for the future. Unlike, unfortunately, a lot of people are putting these vehicles together just for display purposes, but we go to a much deeper level than that, which is very rewarding and will be there for posterity.
The first thing, if we start with, is the chassis number. The chassis number is basically the crux of everything. If you don't have a chassis number, then you really are in trouble.
You're presented with an armoured vehicle. The first problem you have is you don't know where the chassis number has been stamped.
And yesterday, where we were talking about or putting the article together regarding the 261...
It's kind of like a dream situation, because having cleaned the chassis chemically and so forth, the correct chassis number is revealed.
Well, the chassis numbers actually indicate, together with how the vehicle is actually finished, the chassis are finished off, indicate how what the vehicle was originally. Very little of this is actually visible. The 8 you can see, and there's potentially a 1 and a 1, but after that, it really starts to slip away. We then started on our normal process, and that was cleaning the wire brushing the number off, and then putting obviously a solvent on that to make sure that the numbers themselves became that much clearer. Now, in this particular case, the next image that we're showing you here is it moves to 8110 something 7, it would appear. So keeping going, changing the light. This is actually using light to try and coax out or tease out any of these images. That could be a 2 and that could be a 7. So we thought, wow, this is a very early vehicle. And then using another compound again, trying to clear this number out, see what we can find. No real answer on that. So we couldn't really go on this yet. The chassis was very, very rusty. And so what we had to do after this was send this off to be chemically dipped. And hopefully after that we would get a result insofar as what the real number was. When we received this back from the chemical dippers, and you can see 8110-827 is clear as anything. Knowing the chassis number, absolutely important. But how many vehicles still have a data plate?
Almost every vehicle from every nation had a data plate. But those data plates are the first thing that are stolen by souvenir hunters. Even during the wartime, the troopies, as they were finding vehicles, were taking their bayonet out and popping the data plate off and putting it in their pocket and bringing it home to stick in their photo album.
And then what we then have to research, if you don't actually have an original data plate, is to go and put one together based on whatever photographic evidence you've got, and that's super hard.
Yeah. We have a strange situation, I think, with our LP1 carrier. We know that the data plate was taken by a souvenir hunter. So we don't have a data plate, but fortunately we have other evidence that shows the specific number for that vehicle.
Yes, and that's the one we're going to be restoring. Number?
Yeah.
What's the number of that, Hillary?
76.
Yes, that's correct. Just testing you there. The process is gathering as much information about these vehicles as you possibly can in terms of documentation, in terms of imagery, in terms of visits to these individual vehicles or to the survivors. And in the case, for example, of some of these German vehicles, you're talking about one or a single survivor or none, as the case with our 222 4 series is concerned. But pulling all that information together and gathering as many of the parts together as we possibly can as well, before we even start to look at this as a restoration project.
Yes, absolutely. There's about 5 years work on each of these, even if there has been previous research done of a general nature, let's put it this way. But for the actual restoration project, you need about 5 years to prepare all this information.
Okay, this is an original. This is one of two Horsch 801 manuals that we have. And just looking at it, for example, it gives you all of the detail, which does appear in subsequent manuals, but it doesn't capture this early stuff. And what these, the big difference really between what these companies were doing and what then the military were doing, or the people that were responsible for the parts list, is there was a lot more accuracy here. A lot more accuracy insofar as where the date linking up to that particular vehicle itself. And this is a very good piece of let's say reference material, which actually lets you know. Now, by the way, this is a pump. Okay, that's a compressor pump. Now, this compressor pump, you will not find a picture of that in a manual. You will find some very, very obscure references to it, but nothing as clear as that. And here, we now have two of these pumps, but it's taken us 15 years to find these. And so finding another one of these pumps recently was just fantastic. We shan't be looking for another one, but that was very, very good news. And that's all because of the clarity of the image here. If you don't have a manual, you'll get a part number from somewhere. Even with that number, does not refer back to, for example, who was producing that particular device. So what we do over and above that is to determine, even if you have the part number, what does that part number refer to? What is the company behind that part number? Because if you don't have the company behind that part number, you can never be correct. If we were to use the original manuals that we have again and again and again, they simply would fall apart.
Correct.
And also to be able to retain, let's say, a certain page number or a page open at the same time as being able to go back and look at a 1937 training manual, for example, yes, and seeing what correlation there are between the two of these documents, or to see what overlap there is in terms of the description from a very early document to a later one. We would be in real trouble if we were to rely on the original documents themselves had they not been scanned.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a great believer in scanning and digitizing all of this material, and then we can work on it. I have a good library of original manuals, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. It's better to scan them, have them there. And then, of course, the other thing is for the ones that are in the foreign languages like German and so forth, it's important to translate those so that the information is readily available.
When you've got something very old, such as a Renault FT, that was very exciting because that's more of an archaeological exploration or research effort than it is, let's say, necessarily archive. You really were at sea. And that took, I think, 10 years of research to pull all that information in.
Yep.
The Renault FT helped us from one major perspective, and that was the reliance that we established from then on science. We could go back to the original paint layers, okay? Actually strip back the paint layers right back to the metal itself and identify each and every single layer thereafter. And of course the camouflage, and then the timing of the camouflage application as identified by the layers of microscopic dust between one camouflage treatment and another underneath. We looked at all this information and we had a spectrum of different colors that we could then look at. We could then consider for the project. This is something now which is absolutely as critical to us as the chassis number in terms of a layering process to establish this will time the vehicle, but this will also give us a very good indication as to what the paint treatment was at the time it was assembled. What we are doing is really for posterity. All the research that we are doing, all of the publishing of the research that we're doing is for a real living archive to be built and to continue to grow.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, at least with the foundation, we translate the work ultimately into a completely restored vehicle that is as original as is possible. And that's there for history.